In this chapter, we're going to talk about the beta estimation and the beta determinants. We will also talk about the WACC and the firm valuations. So a typical approach to find out the beta, basically we're going to look at the sensitivity of a stock's return to the overall market portfolio. So we're going to pick a market index and find its return and find the firm's stock returns. Then you can use regression or Excel functions, find the slope of these two. So that's our beta. So beta actually just captures the covariance between firm and overall market. When the market goes up or down, is this company's stock going up or down as well? So some issues with the beta estimation process. And when you pick the beta estimates, you pick a sample period, 5-year, 2-year, different frequencies. One issue is the beta may change over time. So if you pick a 5-year rolling window or 2-year rolling window, you may get different beta results. For some of the new companies, they are just recently appeared. They don't have a long history of the stock return information. Other thing we're going to also address here is the leverage may affect the beta. So with the advantage of the technologies, statistical programs, we are able to deal with the issues, some of the issues. You can also take a look at industry's beta. If you're concerned, there's some noisy in the individual firm's beta. So here, if you double click on Excel in your lecture notes, I had a sum template to show you example how we found out the beta, cost equity, and the WACC. So we have the stock price for Intel and S&P 500. So we can convert to returns. You can use a regression approach to find out the beta coefficient, or you can use Excel slope function, find out the beta coefficient. We can use Kaplan model after we get the beta to find out cost equity of Intel. You do need to find out what is the expected market return for the market index. This gives you the idea how you figured out the average tax rate for the Intel. So there are different ways to do cost equity. This approach gives you the idea to use dividend growth model starting from the dividend growth rate and estimate the cost equity. For a company has debt, what is the best way to find out cost of debt? You could use a financial calculator to find the year to maturity. Or another way is you could estimate the yield to maturity with similar bond with similar ratings and find out the comparable YTM and use that. So WACC formula will help us find out the weighted average cost of capital. For certain companies, they are private or they are just new. They don't have much data in the stock returns. You may consider use comparable ratios to estimate their cost equity. If you pull out each company, use your Bloomberg terminal, you'll find out the both beta quotes differ for different companies. Some have the beta less than 1, some have high beta greater than 1. So what will lead to the company has high or low beta? A few things. Some of the factors may increase or decrease the business risk. Some is the financial risk. Example of the business risk factor include revenue cyclicality. Some of the business like retail stores, they pretty much depends on the business cycle. When it's a hot market, everybody want to go out, spend money for gift, holidays, then they may have more sales. During the depression or economic downturns, people will cut down spendings and not really want to spend too much money on the extra gift and so on. So some of the business, their revenue relates to the business cycle, while other sectors, their revenue are pretty much stable, and where people have to purchase and use their product or service anyway. For example, utilities and healthcare. One word about cyclicality, where we talk about business, the revenue follow business cycle. This not necessarily same thing as the variability of the revenue. Okay, so company may have very volatile revenues, but not necessarily close to the business cycle. Okay, so that are two separate concepts. Another thing affect of the business risk is how flexible you are in your operating expenses. You know, some of the retail stores, some of the sectors, they're able to control and their expenses in a flexible manner. For example, if the demand is high, they can hire more workers, temporary workers working for holiday season. And some of the other sector industries or firms, they don't have such flexibility. For example, a lot of the costs are fixed, like a 5-year lease term for the warehouse. Have to spend a lot of money on the machines. So these are pretty much fixed, and you cannot cut down temporarily. So firms with flexible cost, they are may able to respond to the downturn or demand change more flexibly. Okay. While firms locked with a lot of fixed cost are not able to do that. So the degree of operating leverage measures how sensitive is your revenue against your sales change. So firm with a lot of the fixed cost, they pretty much have high leverage. Then they may have a high beta. Another term effect of the beta measure is the financial leverage. If firms loaded with debt, rely a lot of borrowings, so this will put equity holder in a more risky position. So the equity beta will be high. So in sum, there are 3 factors driving our beta. One is how if your revenue is business cycle driven. The other is if you have high or low operating leverage. Lastly is if you have high or low financial leverage. Let's take a closer look at asset beta versus equity beta. So asset beta is also called unlevered beta. So this is fundamentally related to the business risk. So if you're in for example, electronic car sectors, okay, the risk in this sector will be reflected in this asset beta or unlevered beta. The equity beta is the one loaded with the financial leverage effect. Means a company may borrow more or less debt. So it is a combination of the business risk and also financial risk. So the beta we estimate from the regression, from the stock returns, they are the equity beta, which means the company already loaded with leverage, loaded with debt. In a risk-free debt world, okay, so we can convert asset beta to equity beta or vice versa. From asset beta to equity beta, you need 2 times 1 plus after-tax leverage effect. From equity beta to asset beta, we're going to divide by this term. So typically, equity beta, as you see, is greater than asset beta. Let's take a look at how we convert equity beta and asset beta. Suppose Costco currently has 25% debt. It has equity beta 1.6. The board is proposing to level up to a 40% debt. So Costco is going to remain in the same business and they use the same business model. So they're not going to change how they run their business and what type of product or service they provide. The tax is 40%. Assume it's a risk-free debt world. So how do we find the equity beta after the company change their leverage? So this is equity beta 1.6, right? So to get the equity beta after capital restructuring, and first we want to figure out how do we get there, right? Remember, the underlying business risk is the same. So the only thing changed is financial leverage. So we know equity beta may change, but the asset beta is the same. Our strategy is first find out asset beta. Then from asset beta, we're going to find out the new equity beta. So asset beta, from equity beta, we're going to divide this 1 plus 1 minus 40%, debt equity beta ratio. So currently, debt is 25%, which means equity is 75%. So debt equity ratio is 25 over 75. Once we got the asset beta, we're going to level up. So we're going to multiply this term. In the new case, the debt is 40%, equity is 60%. We times the asset beta. Let's check. As you see, equity beta 1.6. The asset beta is lower than 1.6. It's 1.3333. Then we level up again with new debt equity ratio. We got new equity beta is 1.87. So the company increased debt from 25% to 40%. The equity beta increased from 1.6 to 1.87. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and take out your pen and the scratch paper and find out these two cases. How do we find out the asset beta? How do we find equity beta in the second case? Next, we're going to talk about application of the WACC. How do we use WACC find out a simple firm value? We're going to use discount cash flow model. We assume it's two-stage. Stage 1, okay, company have a few years free cash flow. After stage 1, stage 2, company going to continue grow its free cash flow at rate of G. So we simply use discount cash flow, find the present value of each free cash flow. And for the stage 2, we do have to find out terminal value first. The terminal value at time t is the free cash flow at t plus 1, then use WACC minus G. So that's step 1. Step 2, we're going to either use cash flow keys or formulas, find out the present value of all these cash flow. Just be careful for the last year, year t, we have cash flow from two components. One is free cash flow, the other is terminal value. Let's take a look at one example. Happy Time wants to expand its party stores into Southeast. They're thinking about to buy a new company, Joe's Party Supply. The expected cash flow from assets next year, which is year 1, is going to be $16 million. They're going to grow at 7%. For the next 5 years. After that, they will continue the 5% forever. Joe's currently has a debt of $56 million and 2.15 million shares stock. The tax is 35. The cost capital for Happy Time is 15%. For Joe is 12%. So how much is the maximum share price should Happy Time be willing to pay for Joe's company? So here the focus is the Joe's Party Supply. So we want to find out firm value of Joe's Party Supply. Then we are able to find the equity value and the stock price per share. So the first year cash flow from assets, It's already $16 million. Grow at 7% for the first 5 years. Then 5 years later, grow 5% forever. So let's first lay out the cash flows. First year 16, year 2 grow by 7%. From year 5 to year 6, it's grow by 5%. So that's all the cash flow we needed. So the next step is find out the terminal value at year 5. Terminal value is the next year cash flow over WACC minus G. WACC is 12%, G is 5%. So this gives us terminal value for year 5 is 314.6. Means after year 5, the constant perpetual free cash flow is equivalent to the terminal value of 314.6. Now let's focus on the first stage. Okay, so we get a total cash flow. We can use a formula, discount 12%, okay, or use cash flow keys to find out the firm value. So next, we want to find the equity value. Subtract the market value of debt, we get market value of total equity is 187.84. The company has 2.15 million shares of stock, so divided by this number give us stock price per share, which is 87.37. So to summarize, to get firm value or stock price per share, the first step is we want to predict all the free cash flow, then find out the terminal value. Then we want to get the total firm value, use this two-stage discount cash flow model, then subtract the long-term debt to get market value of equity. Lastly, divide by stock price, number of shares to get a stock price per share. Let's look at the one practice. The company concerns purchase of another manufacturing. Currently, it is its supplier. The cash flow, current, not next year, the current times 0. Current cash flow from assets is 7.1. They grow by 7% for the next 5 years. Then they continue for 4% forever. The cost of capital for the two companies is 11 and 9%. Currently, Aris has 3 million shares of stock and $25 million worth of debt. What is the maximum price per share the company should pay for the Aris? Step 1. So we're going to predict all the cash flow. So the first stage has 5 years. So you want to predict at least 1 more year. So notice the given 7.1 million is the current year cash flow from assets, free cash flow. So the first year we have to grow already by 7%. So we do this for all the 5 years. Okay. After year 5, we start with a 4% growth. Okay, be careful with that. Then we predict the cash flow from year 6 is this amount. So this is needed to help us find the terminal value at year 5. So the terminal value, cash flow 6, and the WACC is giving 9% for this company, and the growth 4%. So the terminal value is easily we got to 128,840. Let's now put them all together to discount all these 5-year cash flow to times 0. So remember, in the last year, we have cash flow 5 plus terminal value together. So this gives us total firm value of 168,212. This gives us a total firm value of 168,212,560. Next, we need to find out the market value of the equity. Simply subtract the total market value of debt. We got equity is 143,212,560. Divided by number of the shares, we got the share price. The maximum share price we want to offer is 47.774. To summarize the two-stage model, you need to get information predicting all the free cash flow at least 1 more year after first stage. Then compute the terminal value. If the WACC is given, then we can discount all the information to find out the firm value. To get stock price, you have to subtract the market value of debt to get market value of equity, then divide the number of shares outstanding to get stock price per share. So that's all for the beta determination, the firm value using WACC.